Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Unlocked Podcast. And today we have a special guest, Nikhol Grant. She's a self taught baker, founder of Baked by Nicole Home Bakery in Hell's Kitchen, New York City. And she is here to talk about her amazing story of conquering homelessness, domestic violence, and how she has turned that into being a success story and an inspiration. Since we're going to be talking about incredibly sensitive topics on this podcast, on this episode, I would like to give a trigger warning. We will be talking about domestic violence. We will be talking about intimate partner violence. So if you this is too much for you, I understand if if you tune out. But on the link in the bio in my bio, I will also put information for anyone who's struggling with homelessness or domestic violence for you to get support. So Nicole, welcome to our podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I met Nicole at an event where we're supporting women who have just come out of prison and helping them with their reentry. And Nicole baked amazing cupcakes, and she said a little bit of her story. And if you know me, I'm a sweet tooth and I am a foodie. So I immediately beeline to her and I was like, you have to come on my podcast. So thank you so much for coming. I'm so grateful. So my first question is, what for people who don't know you, what would you like? Who are you? What would you like people to know about you?
I am a baker. I have a home bakery in New York City, and I didn't plan on becoming a bakery, or I didn't plan on starting a bakery. My plan kind of presented itself because of, I guess, opportunity and desperation and resourcefulness. So, as you said, I did escape a domestic violence situation. I was homeless for 2 years, and the same year that I got my apartment, I was so excited that I finally felt like I had a home with my children that I just started cooking and baking. And one day I made a cake and I brought it to a farmer's market and it sold out. So I made another and another. And I honestly have always been an entrepreneur at heart. So I just saw baking as an avenue to become financially dependent after um, being financially abused for so many years. So I think this was just a way for me to show my girls that we could overcome any situation just with creativity and with perseverance. And that's why that's how I founded Bake by Nicole, and I'm hoping that it can grow and become a product sold all over New York City,
And hopefully the world, because it's really
all over
that
the
good.
world. Yeah. Oh, thank you.
So I want to talk about the beginning of your story. And you have discussed how you were in a domestic violence situation. And as you know, this
Yeah.
is something a lot of women, like I think the statistic now is 1 in 3 women. That's an astounding statistic. So I know a lot of people
Yeah.
watching, unfortunately, can relate to your story. Can you tell us how it started and how you met your partner, or how your story started in this direction?
Sure. So I honestly didn't even use the word abuse to describe my relationship until I was an adult. So I met my partner when I was a teenager. So he was actually in his early 20s. I was a teen. So the age gap was already a red flag that I didn't recognize because I was young.
Mhm.
So while I was in high school, he was, 24. We were spending time together. It just started out as a friendship. And then once I turned 18, we became a couple. Um, so at that age, obviously, I was more, I guess, malleable, and
Mhm.
I trusted him a lot. So if he suggested, hey, you can cut school and hang out with me, it was like a fun, exciting opportunity to spend time with him and his older friends, and that I think because I was still building my identity. I allowed myself to kind of fall into this abusive relationship that I didn't realize was coercive and controlling. And um, after the birth of my first daughter, I left. I left him
Mhm.
because I recognized that something was wrong with the relationship. But
Mm,
it it takes people who experience domestic violence. They say up to 7 times a woman will leave and go back to her partner, because even though it was abusive from day one, after the birth of our daughter, he begged for me to return. So
mm,
I left. He begged for me to come back. He promised to change, and I did see those changes temporarily. And I really just wanted to have the traditional family that I think most people want. Just they want their child to have both parents in the household, and that's ultimately what I was striving for. So I put up with a lot when I was young, and after the birth of my second daughter, I saw that this relationship is not what I had envisioned. It's not a fairy tale relationship, but
mm,
I tried to make it work. I stayed for a long time and then left again.
mhm,
But yeah, I think seeing my daughters watch me suffer and watch me struggle, and seeing watching them watch me cry, I think gave me
mm,
more strength than I ever thought that I could summon. So the strength
mm,
that I had to finally leave the last time and to pack in the middle of the night and move to a shelter was because I didn't want them to experience the pain that I experienced. So
mm,
I think there's a lot of stigma in our culture and our society with being a single parent. I think society doesn't give single moms enough credit, because we are ultimately shaping the next generation of people, and we need as much support as possible. So
mhm,
even if the person you had children with, if that person is not a good role model, if they're not a good support system, then it's okay to leave. And
mhm,
no one was telling me that. So I had a lot of people telling me that I should marry this person after knowing about the abuse. I should have more
mm,
kids with them. I should be more forgiving, walk in the way of God, and forgive this person. But I just felt in my heart that my girls deserve better. So
mm.
I left. I actually left um, New Jersey and moved to a new state and moved to New York City, and the rest is history. I will say, while I was in New Jersey, I did do a lot of girls' youth development. I tried to do a lot of girls' empowerment. I was a Girl Scout leader. I did have girls' leadership events, and my partner hated all of that. And that should
Mhm.
have been a sign that this isn't somebody that wanted to help me raise strong, empowered young women. So
Yeah.
now that I'm free from that relationship, and I have my daughters who help me with the bakery, they are so excited to help me, and they
Mm,
have a role model of what it looks like to walk away from something. So I don't want them to fall for the fantasy that I fell for and the
mm,
fairy tale. I want them to see people for who they are and
mm.
move accordingly. I hope that answered your question.
Oh my God, that is such a good summary as well. And you're so incredibly strong. And I celebrate you, woman to woman, for doing something that is so strong. I
Yeah.
always talk about the power of an ordinary story. I mean, when we see every single person has a story, and every single woman has a story, and your story is one of survivorship. And on my platform, on my YouTube channel, I want to champion stories like yours that are seemingly ordinary but extraordinary at the same time. When you talk about, how you got into an abusive relationship, there are so many different ways that women can get into an abusive relationship. And one thing you said stuck out to me. There is not a it's not like there is a huge, most of the time, especially when you're dealing with narcissists and other personality disorders, it's not like there is a huge sign where it says this is an abusive relationship. I want people to appreciate and understand how insidious it is. And your
Mm-hmm.
story is even more disturbing, if I can say use that word, because you were an a child, you were a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this was a fully blown adult. And I want to just even speak on how, now there's a lot of things about age of attraction on Netflix, and stories of, age gap relationships. There is a societal push for us, particularly if you're in America, or even around the world to see this age gap relationships as normal. But I want you to even speak on the power dynamics that can exist in a relationship where it's not a fully formed adult. And
Mhm.
scientists say you're not a fully formed adult until you're 25. That's when your
Right.
frontal lobe develops. I want you to speak on, although he was in his mid 20s as well, I want you to speak on the 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 things like the danger of such age gap relationships and grooming, if you can, from your personal experience.
Of course. So while you're going through it, it doesn't feel like grooming. It just feels like guidance almost.
Mm,
So when I was younger, I was a bit rebellious. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I did turn to my older partner for guidance. Um,
mm,
I think in our culture, there's such a fantasization of teenage girls, um,
mm,
and I think it's because they're so gullible at times. They don't have a strong sense of self. Me personally, I did not have strong boundaries. So even though I felt something was wrong, I didn't have the vocabulary I have now to speak on it. So
mhm,
it is really important to just empower young women. So
mm,
like Girl Scouts, other girls programs, anything that gives young women a platform where they can speak their mind, where they can
mm,
disagree. My girls right now go to an all girls school because it's been proven that when girls are around boys, they're less likely to speak up. So
mm,
because they're taller, they're stronger, they're louder, girls tend to shrink into themselves. And I wanted my girls to have the confidence to speak up, be loud, to be messy, and to not worry so much about being judged or criticized. Um,
mhm,
so the relationship I was in, people will say that it's okay because I was 18 and 18 is the age of consent, but I really should not have been around men in their early 20s. I was still a
yep,
kid. As you know, I'm a mom, I have a 14-year-old, and I started hanging out with my ex when I was 17. And
mm,
that's people will say, they looked at us and they say that it's okay, it's legal, but it's not right. Um,
yeah,
I think that I think more needs to be done to protect teenage girls and to not just look at the number 18 and say okay that's a woman because it's really not. It's not about the number. It's about does this person have strong boundaries? Can she say no? Does she have any idea who she is yet? And that's what our society really needs to be focusing on because strong women can create strong children. Um, we don't want to have a nation of women who lack a sense of self to be raising our children because then those children can also grow up to be
mm,
victims.
yeah. We talk about, like, I think it's the power imbalance when one
Yes.
person is in a position of power. I remember growing up, my mom was very clear. And in our culture, I mean, we're Black women. I'm an African woman, Nigerian. It's and you're Caribbean, if I remember correctly.
Jamaican.
There's this Jamaican. It's normal, and I'm sure other women who are listening to see when I was 14, 15, being catcalled, 13, being catcalled by men in their mid 20s, in their late 20s, sometimes even in their 30s, in their 40s, this disgusting behavior of sexualizing Black teenagers and sexualizing Black young girls. And I can speak particularly for our community, the Black community in the diaspora, and even in our Jamaica, Nigeria. I can speak more authoritatively because I've heard the stories where it is so it's almost like a preying on those young
Absolutely.
women.
Oh yeah.
That's how I see it. It's like, oh, this woman, oh, and this is the word they use, you're mature for your age.
Yes.
As an older woman, you may be mature for your age group of high school students, but you're not mature for an older man. You're a
Absolutely.
child, right? There's no such thing. You cannot, even as I'm 28, I still need to be careful with my interactions with older men because they have more, they especially people with personality disorders and narcissists, this is their bread and butter,
Hmm.
right? They know how to trap women and young women. So what role would you say is the role of the parents in protecting your young girls? I know you have a young girl right now, young girls right now. And what have you learned from your situation that you're using? You said a few, but you're using in training your young women in how to be cognizant of these predators.
I think, first of all, informing young women that not every man that you meet is a potential Prince Charming.
Mm,
um,
mhm,
I think growing up, we kind of live in this fantasy that guys are like us, and they're really not. So men have
mhm,
a totally different motive when they're out in the world, um, and there are a lot of predators, and they know how they could how they can spot their prey. We don't know the
mhm,
signs. It's
mhm,
by how a woman walks, how she carries herself, her eye contact,
mm,
how she
mm,
speaks, um,
mm,
how easy it is for her to say no. And
mm,
it's very subtle things that I think a lot of parents don't teach their daughters. Maybe because
mhm,
they don't want them to be afraid, but
mm,
I'm making sure that my girls know the signs. Because I think if my parents talk to me more instead of sheltering me, because I grew up
mm,
very conservative, Christian, I know,
mm,
in the church, so I didn't have a lot of experience. So
mm,
there were times when men made me uncomfortable, but I couldn't understand why. And I'm going out of my way to tell the girls, like, oh, okay, it's probably because he wants something. If,
mm,
a boy that you, or a man comes in for a hug, you don't have to hug him. You know, in our generation, or in the 90s, if there's a family gathering, your parents would force you to hug people, hug men, even if
yeah,
you feel uncomfortable. They'll push you, this is your uncle, this is whoever,
mm,
you should hug them to greet them. I don't force my girls to do that. So I think I give them a lot more autonomy than I got.
mhm,
I listen to them when they don't want to go somewhere, they don't want to wear something. If they feel uncomfortable around someone, I listen to them. So that's
mhm,
something big. I think culturally, I think parenting is shifting. So I the younger parents are feeling more comfortable saying no. I think boomers and older generation, they're more they follow tradition a lot more. So
mhm,
it's all about respecting the elders, respecting your parents, and not really listening to the opinions of young people, because people think that young people, they don't know, they don't understand. But I worked in education. I was a teacher for a long time, and kids understand. They don't have the
mhm,
vocabulary to verbalize, but they see things. They pick up on patterns. They pick up on energy. And I think parents just need to take more time to talk to their kids, listen to their kids, ask them why they feel the way they feel, why they feel the way they feel, and then act accordingly. So I have respect for my daughter's opinions, even though they're 12 and 14. They might see something I might not see, because adults
absolutely.
will act differently when they have when they're alone with a child, when they're alone with a teenage girl. I
Mhm,
know personally, my mom had a close friend that she was friends with since college, and she had a dinner party once, and this person got drunk at the dinner party. And when I was 14, he, came, he pulled me aside and was whispering to me. And
mm,
I could tell that he was drunk. And I said to him, like, hey, if you're drunk, you probably shouldn't drive home, just innocently. And he got really close and said, oh, okay, so you want me to sleep over? Huh? You want me to
mm,
sleep over?
mm, mm, mm,
And
mm.
I told my mother that story, and she didn't really, I love my mom, but she didn't really believe me. She didn't do much about it. She said, "Oh, that's just him. He likes to make jokes." So if my daughter were to tell me that a friend of mine said that, I think I would take more action, which is something that parents need to do more of. Just listening to your kids and doing everything you can to protect them and make them feel comfortable.
Yeah. There is this like the generation preceding us.
Hmm.
There is this whole mentality of staying a child's place or not
Yes,
seeing children as fully whole human beings and seeing like their opinions are not respected. Like I come from a Nigerian background and sometimes even voicing my opinion to an adult and saying, I don't like this, I was labeled as a rude child or oh she's so rude, oh she's so rude because I would say I'm so grateful that for whatever reason, I was okay with being a rebel when I was younger. That
that's
has
amazing.
served me. That has served me as an adult. Because
And it's
what
probably
you're
protected
doing,
you.
has protected me as well. Because I keep going back to what you say, where it's like they look at how you walk, how you talk. Everybody, when I was younger, knew I had a big mouth, and I would tell you, and I would tell my mom, and I would tell everybody who could listen what was going on. So there was, because they know that, oh, this girl, she would not keep quiet. They labeled me a troubled child to try to suppress me, to try to suppress my autonomy and my strength. But for whatever reason, because sometimes, when people are always complaining about you to your mom may start to be like, oh, you're trouble, you are trouble. But for me, I always knew that this was something I wanted to continue to do. And it makes me, even now as a woman, I don't have the people pleasing gene anymore as an adult woman because of what I have cultivated as a young child and as a young adult. When we want to raise strong women, like you're doing with your beautiful daughters, and I'm so proud of you and taking these things and not repeating the cycle, your daughters will have such an easy time in saying no, even to when they're in relationships or when they're in their jobs or when they're in their careers or whatever, the things that you've had to learn at your later age, your children know that now. So you're breaking generational curses by even how you're raising them to be vocal and to advocate for themselves, because you're not always going to be there, Nikhol, but you need to trust that if you're uncomfortable, because trust me, you don't always know these predators, the way they move, they are very sly. So
Yes.
they don't always say, oh, I want to date you, come, let's go, do whatever. It's almost in the testing you. So you can just say, wait, you're making me uncomfortable, I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You do not overtly say anything, and in your actions, but you can be like teaching your daughters to be like, "You're making me uncomfortable. I need you to step back," and be okay with that, and be okay with being like, "No, step back. You're in my personal space. You're making me uncomfortable. I don't care if you're 100 years old or 12. Like, step back."
Mm-hmm.
And giving our daughters that empowerment, and women, so they do not become older or young adults or adults that are very uncomfortable in even asserting their human rights, asserting their boundaries. So I just want to applaud you for doing that.
I
And
really
I want to,
appreciate that. And
yeah,
this was totally unconscious. I
yeah.
didn't even realize it until you just said, like, oh yeah, I
Oh,
am breaking generational curses because I do allow
oh,
them to speak up
1,000%.
and express themselves. They dress how they want to dress. They are
Yeah.
polite girls, but when it comes to like West Indian values, you're supposed to kind of submit to the male in the
Yes.
house. So if
Yes.
I had stayed in the home with their father,
Mm,
the girls would have been, because it was a multi-generational home. It wasn't just
mm,
me and their dad. It was the dad's mom, the brothers,
yeah.
there were uncles there. So my girls would have had to cook and clean for the other men in the family.
Yeah.
They would not have been able to speak up if they were upset or uncomfortable. And
Mm,
to this day, their dad is upset with me for allowing them to vocalize so much. So when
mm,
he says something and the girls ask, why do we have to do that? He gets
mm,
enraged
mm,
because it's like, where did you girls get this confidence from? So
mm-hmm.
that is something that I'm actually really proud that I have instilled in them, is their voice and the confidence that I wasn't allowed to have at their age. So
Yeah.
thank you
But
for saying that.
you're welcome. I'm so inspired by you. And when it comes to, for example, the culture, even surrounding domestic violence in, again, communities, but I want to also hyper focus on the Black community, the Jamaican, the Nigerians, African communities in diaspora, because that's a very, very um, specific community. That's a very specific culture where it's the culture of domestic violence is embedded in the community and in the culture, where it's not even seen as domestic violence. And was that your experience where you did not, you were not even able to say this is domestic violence, or they did not believe the severity, or did not think it was a big deal? Did you even come in contact with things like that?
Hmm. It didn't feel like it was domestic violence because I grew up around a lot of misogynistic men. So the
mm,
word they would describe themselves is traditional roles for men, traditional roles for women. But it was really about like oppressing and suppressing the women in the house. So
mhm,
all of the women's labor was exploited, and that's was just a dynamic that I was used to.
mm,
So when I met my girl's father, and I actually moved into his house when I was
mm,
18, which is also, shows a power imbalance. So
mhm,
I was expected to do roles that I was kind of already prepared to do.
mm,
So it didn't feel like domestic violence. So I fell right into the role I was expected to have.
mm,
As a kid, I grew up around a lot of men, a lot of boys, and their views on women can be very skewed. So if I'm
mm,
a teenage girl and my cousins who are my age are talking about their sexual exploits with all of their girlfriends, and
mm,
I dare bring up a boy I have a crush on, I would be called a slut, a whore. Good girls don't do that. So
mhm,
it was made very clear very early on that my role is different than a man's role or a boy's role.
mhm.
So I think the grooming process started very young, and
Very.
I I did not notice it until I was older.
Two things you said: exploiting female labor, that got me, and the grooming process unfortunately even starts when the young girls are in their parents' house, with how they're trained to go out into the world. The thing is, exploiting labor, when you marry, when a man takes a wife, he's taking on a laundry person, a cook, a cleaner, a mommy, a second mommy, all kinds of housework. These are real jobs. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, people get paid to do laundry. They're expecting that their wives are going to be their servants. But where does this come from? Where does this is embedded in our society once again, but it's also trained as in how the women are raised. So women are not raised to one day, especially in African community, again, in communities that I've said before, they're not raised to be like, okay, you're gonna have your own autonomy. It's, oh, when you get to your husband's house, you're gonna have to clean. It's that they're preparing you for that life of exploited labor and servitude. So, like you said, when you get into your husband's house and those things are being enforced, you don't step back and say, wait a minute, it's not right that I'm doing all these things, that there's no balance in cleaning the house or in help or help. It's not right. It's you feel like this is par for the course. This is what I signed up for. This is what I've been trained for. This is what I've been raised for. That is just so unfortunate. Now, if we can get into the more sensitive part of the story, do you mind saying what kind of abuse, what forms of abuses that you experienced in your former relationship?
Yeah, so it was difficult for me to recognize the relationship as abusive because I wasn't hit,
Hmm.
but there was psychological, financial, sexual abuse, um, physiological, emotional abuse. So all of that, a lot of people ignore it because they will say, well, at least he's there. You have your children's father, he's there in the house with you. But they don't know that I tried to put him on child support while we lived together because he said his money is his money. So when I had to deal with someone and he is not supportive of any of the goals that I have and is actively sabotaging it. For instance, when I was in college, I actually went to college after I had children. He would hide the keys when I had to go to class. He would hide the keys. If I was staying up late studying, he would give me the babies and leave the house and not tell me where he was going or when he was coming home. I was sexually assaulted in my sleep a few times, and a lot of people overlook it because this is your partner, this is the person that you chose to have children with, and it's unfortunate that people are telling women to choose better because I did not know this is the partner that I had until I was already locked in. uh, so and the fact that the word abuse is only linked to physical violence, is why I think a lot of women stay when they're being financially abused and emotionally abused, and they try to justify verbal abuse as he's just having a bad day, he's tired, let me do what I can as a good wife or a good partner to try to take the load off for him. And they're not realizing that if you were to just leave, you could do a lot more on your own with your children. um, I think people need to just educate themselves on the signs of abuse, and then they would recognize it more, and it wouldn't be so culturally accepted, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because what you said, and you've said it twice now, where whenever you try to do anything for your own development, such as going to school, being around women who are empowering you, he would have a problem with that, right? And you can just see how much the community of women supporting each other and pouring into each other is so important, right? And how it's just so paramount to, I mean, in our in our culture and in our society as a whole in general, we have this, like, for women, we're so this fantasy that, having the man is the prize, like getting married is the prize, and your romantic relationship with your male partner is the best relationship you can have. When we then start to not prioritize our female friendships, our female communities, our female groups, and or other relationships that we have. But just even hearing your story reiterates for me just how important those relationships are, because it's in women's circles you would get, okay, you need to go to school, in good friendship. And that's also, by the way, why the society tries to pit women against each other, and let's say compare your beauty and compare your whatever it is, because they know when women come
Yes.
together to
And
support each other.
especially, yep, especially putting older women against younger women. I really
Hmm.
think older women have so much wisdom and knowledge that they could instill to younger women, but
Hmm.
society doesn't want older women to warn young women and to tell them
Yeah.
you have to be financially stable, you need a community, make sure you
Yeah.
are independent. They
Yes.
When an older woman tries to warn a younger woman, it's labeled as jealousy. She's a
Yes.
hater. She wants what you have. She
Yes.
wants your beauty. And I really think that it's about keeping young women ignorant so that they're easier to control. Because
Hmm.
something happened once I turned 30. I was just like, you know what? No, I'm not doing this
Yes.
anymore. It's like
Yes.
a switch went off. And I cannot even imagine, I can't even put myself in the mindset of someone that would tolerate what I tolerated for so long.
Hmm.
And being financially independent is so important to me now, and it's something that I have to let younger women know, because there's such a cultural shift now among men. There's this whole red pill manosphere, men are the prize. And there's
Hmm.
also simultaneously a push on the women's side to be a trad wife. So, you don't have to work, you should submit to your husband.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
is just a cultural push that is going to end up in disaster, because you're going to
Yes.
have women who are submitting to men who do not respect them. And
Hmm.
I'm hoping that Baked by Nicole and your platform will encourage women to find their inner strength, and to know that you can still find a quality man while you are strong,
Yes.
independent, outspoken. You don't have to lose your voice to find a good man.
Or your, this is resonating with me, or your ambition. I was talking to my brother, because my brother and I, we have these conversations, and it's like he was asking me why I'm a feminist, and I had to, because I feel like also in the Christian circle there's this whole thing of like the feminist word is a taboo, which I don't think so. I'm a proud feminist. I'm a proud feminist woman. I believe in the things, the feminist movement and what we're trying to achieve, because I have seen the harm that comes from the patriarchy and the system of patriarchy. So I even in terms of your ambition, you can be ambitious and still be a successful woman and still feel like a woman in your relationship. You can do all the, we now live in 2026, right? a lot of people are like, oh, my grandma stayed with my grandpa for 50 years. But your grandma did not have a credit card. Your grandma was not going nowhere. She did not have any money. If she wanted to leave, she did not
Grand-
have anywhere to go.
Grandma was a prisoner. She
Your
had 10
grand
kids because she had to have 10 kids, not because she wanted
exactly.
to.
Exactly. Your exactly what you said. Your grandma was a prisoner. Do not compare. Like, if you hear the stories, and that's why I think it's important. You, whenever I speak to an older woman, they're like, "I love what you're doing for you." Every single time, keep going. No, you have to. You have to have that degree. I've been so encouraged by older women. They're like, "Oh no, now it's not time for a relationship. You need to focus on that degree," or "No, you need to get your own money. Know what you're doing. Know who you are." Men are not the prize. You can find good friends. You can, like, those were the priorities they were telling me to have. And we should always listen, like, okay, if they're saying all these things, it means there's some truth in it, where you can figure out who you are in yourself as a woman first before you have anything to give to somebody else. And it's whenever I'm in the company of women like yourself, Nikhol, I'm telling you, women who seen your business, seen how you not only did you start a business after you came out of the situation to fend for your children, you're also imparting, even, I know we'll talk about it later, the community and the events that you have to empower women, how you're raising your children. That empowers me to keep going, because sometimes it can be discouraging when you're like, oh, you're not going to find nobody, or you're not, trying to make you feel like the life of a feminist, the life of a woman who is empowered, is a lonely one, which sometimes it can be, because you don't have, your mentality is so different sometimes. There are some things you just will not take, but for others, they're willing to stand by it, and that's goals for them. Um, so it can be lonely, but it's one worth it. Your dignity as a woman is worth protecting, I feel, in my opinion. And I commend you so much. I'll keep saying it on this podcast. I commend you so much. And I hope that anybody, even if it's one person who is listening, is able to feel inspired by you, and like apply that to their own lives.
Thank
um
you.
you're welcome. So when you left, you said you had what was your light bulb moment where you said, I have to leave now? I know you spoke about it, but I also want you to then tie it into the process of you leaving and moving to New York.
Sure. So I would say the weeks leading up until the day I actually left, there was a lot of fighting in the house. As I said, it was a multi generational house, so it was my family, and there were my daughter's aunts and uncles also living in the house. So there was a lot of violence going on. So my girls would hear a lot of yelling. There were physical fights. There were police called, and I remember at one point my ex's sister threatened to kill me. And I went to the police, and my ex, when he found out, I went to the police. He basically said, if my sister gets in trouble because of you, we're done. And that was the moment. I remember where I was when he said it. I remember the look on his face. He said that and walked off. And that was the moment. I'm like, okay, you know what? It's time to start making moves. And for a lot of women, they cannot leave the moment that they know they need to leave. It's a slow process. This man, he had threatened to kill me and kill himself if I ever left him. So I know I had to move very carefully. And it started with me putting my things into storage units. I actually reached out to the YWCA, and they are an amazing, amazing organization for women. They are great advocates, and they are the ones that found the housing process. So I believe it's called PATH. So I reached out to PATH. They told me where to go, and after all my things were in storage, I contacted the YWCA, who found temporary or emergency housing advocate in New York City. So I had to travel with my girls to New York. I had to bring all of our documents so I could get put into the housing system. And then I was sent to a homeless shelter. And once they put you in the system, you can get sent to any shelter in the 5 boroughs. And by the grace of God, I was sent to a shelter that was 15 minutes away from my aunt that I grew up with. So I immediately had the support of my family after I left the bad situation. And once I was in the shelter, I signed up for health insurance for myself and my daughters. And I found a therapist. I started doing therapy while I was in the shelter. And I started um, doing homeschooling because this was during COVID, so the schools were shut down. And I just knew that after leaving a situation where I was torn down every day, my main focus was to build myself up, build up my skills, and build up my girls. So I I worked on my girls' homework. I worked on my own confidence. I worked on my resume. I had to do an entire career shift because I moved out of state, and I I just I don't think people give women enough credit when they tell them they were in a domestic violence situation. People say, "Well, why didn't you just pack up and leave?" Because it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort, especially if you're leaving with children. You have to understand that the kids don't see the situation the way that you see. So my girls were begging to go back home. So in that home, there were other children there. So they were missing their cousins. They were crying that they wanted to see their cousins and their aunts. And I just had to promise them that what I was doing was the best for them, and that our life was going to be a lot better. And eventually, after 2 years in the shelter, I won the New York City housing lottery, and I was placed in permanent housing. And ever since then, we have been comfortable living in Manhattan, but still, I'm actually still in therapy. I'm a huge advocate for therapy. And this is something that I'm probably going to have to deal with for a long time. But I am very grateful for the YWCA and for New York City for providing me with the resources I need to rebuild myself after leaving that situation.
Yeah. I'm so hearing your story, I'm so touched. I'm so moved because although you were able to explain it in 5 minutes, that was tremendous strength. And I'm sure there were ups and down days that we're not able to properly articulate in this time. I have so much respect for you and what you did for your girls. And that's another thing in living in a country in the United States where a lot has been done for domestic violence, and a lot of civil society have worked to have these opportunities in place. And my heart also goes out to women who are like in Africa or the Middle East or other countries, India, where they're not able to easily access resources to leave and move out. And that's why it's honestly my life's mission to build up institutions where they're able to have the capacity to respond to this crisis and to helping women um, around the world. And I'm just congratulations on your home and um, doing therapy also. That is so important. There's something you said that just touched me, where you said you've been pulled down for so long, you had to start to build yourself back up. And that is another process, and I can see it in you. You're so confident, and probably that's what led you to starting your business, right? And growing in your business. And as a as an entrepreneur, can you talk about your process of being an entrepreneur and your company now, and where you see that going in the future?
Sure. So, as I said, I really think I was born an entrepreneur. I
Yeah.
remember being maybe 9 years old and making origami and selling it in school to my classmates for 25 cents, 10 cents. And my business was so successful that I got called into the principal's office, and he had a bunch of my origami on his desk, and he said, "What are you doing with these?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just selling them." He's like, "Oh, okay. So how much did you make?" I think I made like maybe $3. And he was so impressed that he just said, "Okay." I thought I would be in trouble, but I wasn't in trouble. And he just sent me back to class and said, "Okay, well, just don't do that." And yeah, I've always seen opportunities to be creative and be resourceful and to make money. Even when I was in the shelter, it was during COVID, I started making masks. So I made masks for myself and my daughters. And I remember at one point I couldn't afford to buy like nice fabric to make a mask. So I would use my bed sheet. And I would, I made the stencils and I changed the design. And from there, I started an Etsy where I sold masks during COVID. And no one would know that the pictures that I was taking from my Etsy were outside a homeless shelter. Um, so I think it's just if you have that desire to make something out of nothing and you have that desire to just build something, it's something that comes from within you. So Bake by Nicole started just as me wanting to take advantage of where I was now. I'm in a very foot traffic heavy area in the city. And I remember at one point I allowed my girls to set up a lemonade stand, and that was their first opportunity to become their own entrepreneurs. And then I started baking, and I went outside and I sold some cupcakes, and I went to a farmer's market, and I just saw an amazing opportunity for growth. If growth and self-development is in you, then you'll find an outlet everywhere. Um, but I think I just my love for cooking and my desire to create and to celebrate. I am really excited that people allow me to give them something to like signify an event. So like a baby shower, gender reveal, wedding, a birthday party. Like I think just having a cake there to bring people together is I'm glad that it's something that I'm able to provide for people because I have so much fun making it. And I really just see my business as something that it it will allow me to create financial stability and the skills for myself and my daughters so that they never have to depend on another person. They see me build something out of nothing. So when I'm at home baking and I'm focused and I'm locked in, my girls go into their room and they start coming up with things that they want to do. So my oldest, she does her lemonade, her flavored lemonade, during the summer, and my youngest sells bracelets. And this is just something that they came up with on their own. And I think just watching my persistence and determination, and they see me staying up late, and they see that even if I mess it up, I keep going, I don't quit. It 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 gives them the confidence and the the vision that they can become better if they don't quit. So I'm hoping Bake by Nicole will grow and expand from New York City to eventually becoming international. And our products might also expand. I'm expanding from cakes to now cookies. Maybe I will do
Yeah.
cake jars, but it's all about
Yes.
expansion and growth. That's the name of the
Yeah.
game.
You got me at like expansion because I'm all over the place in every single country. I want to be able to. I love sweets, so
Really?
I'm more than happy to. Yes, I'm more than happy to. When we were together in New York, she baked for the event. I was like, and I was about to go grab some more. I saw him in the tray. I was like, no, 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 no. We're trying to lose weight. That's it. It was so good, and I even the story even makes it so much more supporting
Thank
you and
you.
supporting my fellow woman. So I'm down to support, and I hope people across New York come support your business, especially businesses that have this kind of story. And that brings me to like we're rounding up, but I want to know, how do you find community now and people to encourage you? Do you find support in your family in what you're doing and how you're moving? How are you able to create a community and support system around you that is healthy?
Oh
And how
yeah.
you just recognize healthy community now?
That is such a great question because community is essential. Like, I think one of the reasons why I fell into such a bad relationship is because I didn't feel like I had community. And some of it was intentional because my partner knew that isolation was a way to gain control. So even now, I'm still working on building my community and having a strong group of women around me. I come from a family of very strong independent women. My grandmother, so she left Jamaica after she had children because she found her husband cheating, and she's just like, you know what? No, I'm not dealing with this. So she actually had to leave the children behind for some time to go establish herself in another country and then send for the children to bring them later. So I have the utmost respect for what she did. And the the women in my family are extremely supportive. Most of them are, if not all of them, yeah, all of them are entrepreneurs. So they all have their own crafting business. They are salon owners. They are business owners. They do like tech. They're artists. So we all support one another because it is so extremely important to just support your fellow woman. And as far as building community, um, I think it's just important to find who you are, build yourself up, and find women who are interested in the same thing you're interested in. So I I love education, and I love art and creativity. So my community of women are all artists. They're dancers, they're singers, they're painters, and I think I find a lot of strength in knowing that I share core values with my female friends.
That's good. And female, yes to female friendships. So, do you want to tell us about the events you have coming up in October for women in New York? What is that about, and where is it? Any information you can give?
Sure. So I'm still putting it together. It's going to be in
Okay.
Harlem. It is a women's leadership and entrepreneurship event. This is actually going to be my second event. Um,
Okay.
it's going to be bringing together women who are in male dominated fields. That is the leadership aspect. The entrepreneurship aspect are women who own their own business and are self made. So when I first did it, it was actually kind of difficult to find women that are in male dominated fields. I had to call around to find police lieutenants and executives, firefighters, because to this day there are still a lot of jobs that are not filled by women because for whatever reason women just aren't interested. And the event that I had was for women and for children. So I had the women come up to talk about what it was like to pursue a career in a male dominated field. Sometimes they were the only woman in the room or in the office, and their their perspective just conveyed that perseverance and a strong sense of self and a strong sense of who you want to become is essential to building the career that you want. So if you want to find out more information, like the exact date of the event, you have to follow me on Instagram at Baked by Nicole. But right now, I am looking for women that are in male dominated fields to come speak at the event, to maybe
Mhm.
set up a table. The last time I did it, I had a firefighter who brought all of her equipment and she explained how to use it to all of the girls. And
Wow.
I'm really, really excited to just show girls that there are more options for them.
Yes, yes. And I will also put all your information in the description, as well as any resources that are available. New York, America. I'll try to find global resources as well. And
Thank you.
yeah, and I thank you for your event. Thank you so much for coming, Nicole. Thank you for coming and speaking in such an authoritative but calm manner about this very important subject. I wish you the best. I wish your children the best. You have done amazing things. I hope you're proud of yourself. And I would ask everybody who's watching to please go. So if you're in the New York City area, please go support her. Please go follow her, share her company, and order some cookies. And you do custom orders, right? You have to.
Yes, yes. Everything
So order
custom,
some cookies.
everything.
Yes, yeah, so order something for somebody, and so you can support her and support her girls. Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming. And
Thank you
guys,
for
please
having
make
me.
sure to, you're welcome. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. I can't believe I'm saying that now. Wherever you are, I know, and listen wherever you get your podcasts. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye, everybody.